Hi, and welcome to She's the Boss, the show that is all about female founders and women doing extraordinary things in business. Now, if you enjoy the show, please will you like, comment, and share it via YouTube. But let's get down to the nitty-gritty. I am so excited. I have a fantastic guest today. Her name is Martina Geromin. I have to say it the right way, Martina.
Geromin.
Geromin, and she is the CEO and co-founder of the School Beyond Limitations, which has to have the best name of any school I've ever heard. So welcome, Martina.
Thank you so much for the invitation. I'm very, very happy to be here. Thank you.
Well, I'm very excited to have you here. So, and the other thing is, of course, Martina is speaking to me from Switzerland, so it's very exciting. So,
although not being Swiss, right? I'm Italian and being in Switzerland.
Fantastic. So I want to hear all about this. So why don't we start with what is the School Beyond Limitations?
Well, the School Beyond Limitations is, as you said, it's a school that goes beyond limitations. So we don't put any limits in anything we are doing. We want students to really discover themselves, to grow out of themselves and to live up to their full potential. So we believe in the power of education. We believe that there is the possibility of bringing each student into his or her own essence. And if we do that, then we also live in a good and a better reality, because they actually are ready to share their potential with the others. They're ready to contribute. They're ready to see how important they are. But it's not a selfishness, right? It's about understanding I'm here for a specific reason, and I'm here to contribute to life and to society.
What a fantastic initiative. So what sort of kids go there? Is it an online school? Is it a real school? How does it all work?
Exactly. It's an online school in the first place. Actually, I created it together with my co-founder, because we wanted to create a school that actually goes with the students, because I've been working for many, many, many years in different international schools, also as a head of school, as school leader. And there was always something in me where I felt it's such a pain for many people when they have to change country, when they have to move to different cities, to leave everything back, and to start from scratch again. So there was this idea, why don't we create something where the school actually goes with the students? And that was one of the reasons to create this school, just to get this pain away and to give continuity to our students.
Well, it's fantastic. and obviously I'm in Melbourne in Australia. We've been locked down for nearly 7 months. We're literally only out for 2 weeks, and the whole country has gone online, as is obviously happened in Europe as well. So it's almost like you were prescient, you knew that there needed to be online schools. But what sort of students are moving around all the time? Because in Australia, we don't have that boarding school culture that they have in Europe. And I know my parents lived in Germany, and I went to school in England from about 8 to 12 before we moved to Australia. So I kind of understand it, but I wouldn't think a lot of Australian women would understand that. So can you explain a little bit more?
Well, of course, it's expat families for sure as well. But it's not only, more and more, there are families out there who have their own businesses online, who want to be extremely, flexible with what they are doing. They want to live and work wherever they find themselves at ease, right? So they travel around. They are so-called online business entrepreneurs. And it's also for them. And then it's also for separated families. Many times, children have to make this decision, shall I stay with mom or shall I stay with dad for school reasons, right? And now they have the option that they can say, okay, I stay with my mom for 2 months and with my dad for 1 month or whatsoever as it comes. And it's their decision, because they can take their school with them. And of course, also with, parents who are sports people or actors, parents who move around all the time and who would like their children to be with them, so it's a vast target out there, vast, market, so to say.
And what sort of, have you got children in all over the world? I mean, have you got children from all sorts of countries, or are they mainly within Europe, or where are the students coming from?
Well, of course, we are pretty new to the market. As you rightly said before, we started much earlier, of course, than the pandemic. We didn't know anything about the pandemic, so the reason wasn't the pandemic. But we started, so to say, with a pilot phase about 3 years ago. So the pilot phase was really extremely successful, and now we are in our second school year, so to say. And we started basically in Europe to start with, but now we have already students from Asia as well, and we are open to intake students from all over the world, actually, because we are flexible. I mean, for now, we can take students. We have currently students living in Bali and in Bangladesh, and of course around Europe. So it's pretty diverse. It's pretty diverse.
Yeah, fantastic. I just can imagine how great it would be to say, "What's your school?" "Oh, I go to the School Beyond Limitations." It's just such a great name. Okay, so let's talk about, why did you set it up? Like, was there a light bulb moment? Was there something that happened that made you go, hang on a minute, there needs to be an online school and I'm going to start it?
Well, actually, there are two moments, I would say. I mean, I was always already as a 5 years old child, I knew that I would like to create my own school, because already at kindergarten, I realized that there's something about school which is not necessarily, I don't want to say the right thing. It's too standardized. I felt it was already standardized at the time. And I realized you need to do something about it, so to cater for each individual need. And that was already clear to me at the age of 5. So and it always came back, in any setting I was working, and I was working, of course, as a teacher. I was working as a principal. I was working all the way through from primary school up to university level. There was always something I realized certain aspects are missing. And it's this holistic aspect very often. It's the personal development aspect, the emotional development aspect, and the entrepreneurial aspect. Why shall a student wait until, the end of university to start his or her own job? Why can't we start earlier? So all these aspects made me think I have to create my own school. Initially, honestly speaking, I was about to create a physical school, and I was already very far ahead with all, the permits and stuff like that. But in the end, it fell through. So it didn't work out in the end because of different reasons. I don't want to go into that.
But you didn't let it stop you.
No.
And I would have to say, there's not a lot of career teachers, I think, that would have that entrepreneurial urge to go and set up their own school. So I really, really admire you. I think that's amazing.
Yeah, it was always part of me, right? In any setting I was there, I felt this is my school. And I always introduced something new there. And sometimes I was a little bit too fast for this, for the setting I was used to work in. So the second aspect that made create the online school, as you said before, was actually the meeting of my partner. She's an entrepreneur, and she's got 2 children. And she said, and she knew where I was coming from. I was actually undertaking a marketing course with her because she's working she's a marketing coach, so to say, right? And that was for me very important. I wanted to set something up, but it wasn't clear to me online school. It was clear to me online education, something at that specific moment. And so she said, well, Martina, can't you imagine to set up a school online? And then, putting all these things together, it was clear, of course, it has to be an online school. But it's not only online because, of course, always get this kind of idea, well, what about the social aspect? Right? What about the social aspect?
Good point. Good point.
And then it was clear. So we also create offline moments of experiential learnings. So we actually, as a school, come together in different countries for the time being in Europe, where we 3 times per year, where the students actually physically meet among
So
themselves.
is that like a school camp at that stage? Do they come and learn, or is it a social situation?
It's not only a social situation, it's actually an experiential, educational, and social experience. So
Fantastic.
we go to specific countries, and it's always with a focus that is very relevant for that specific country, because we want to,
I love it.
know.
Do you know that when I was younger, there was a book that I don't know where I got it from, but your school reminds me of it so much. It was called The School in the Skies, and it was written, I would say, in the 1930s, because I remember they were all, oh, jolly good old boy and jolly hockey sticks. But the concept, which I loved, was that, and it must have been when planes were really new, but the school was being held on a plane, and that they would stop in different countries and learn about that country as they did it. And your school almost does that. That's amazing.
Yeah, this is our, aim, to actually make sure that our students get to know different diversity out there. Because even in Europe, we may talk about Europe, but Europe is so diverse. And I imagine,
yes.
I imagine that maybe even Australia. I have never been to Australia so far.
Oh, you must come over. You'll have to do a school trip here.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. But I imagine that there may be differences for sure also between Brisbane and Melbourne and Sydney, and
yes, absolutely.
And this is it, right? So that the students really develop this understanding of diversity, multicultural sensitivity, so that they are also then ready to embrace not only diversity, but also to embrace the fact of living in different realities, so that they see I can, integrate wherever I am without giving up on my own essence and identity, or however you want to define it,
Oh, I love it. Oh, Martina, I just love what it is that you're doing. Now I'm going to get you to take me back, because I want to hear about how your career has unfolded, and what experiences you had along the way that kind of led to the School Beyond Limitations. So you started with 5. Let's start there. Tell me about your life and how it's unfolded.
Well, I had a happy childhood, right? I would say I was living in a very small village, and I went to normal traditional schools, and it was really fine until middle school. So in secondary school, I chose the wrong school, honestly speaking. So it was really wrong.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, it was really wrong. But, it was just a conditioning from the outside, and I don't want to blame anyone, because this is just the way sometimes it happens, but I was really like feeling my body's in a wrong setting. My entire being is in a wrong setting. But instead of giving up, I just went through, because inside me, intrinsically, I knew it would take me to the right destination. And then I started, when I went into university, I studied, I did a doctoral degree in pedagogy and psychology.
What's that? What's pedagogy? Say it again. You tell me.
Pedagogy is education, right? So I went into education, and I went really into depth with that. And I started teaching. And as I said before, with teaching, I realized I always brought so many different aspects into, because I also started at the same time a course on coaching and cosmology and all these aspects.
So you've always had this massive interest in lots and lots of different things.
Yes.
Right.
Exactly.
Okay. So keep going. Sorry, I interrupted you.
No worries. No worries. But anyway, that took me. And so I brought always kind of innovation into what I was doing. And I realized how much I connected also with the students, right? The students just responded to that so well. And we did so many different interesting things. And then I moved to different places, to different countries, and I had to leave back, of course, my job. And so I broadened my teaching career in the international setting. And
so hang on, no, I have to bring you back a bit, because lots of people also don't understand international schools, which again is quite a European thing. Can you tell me a little bit about some of the schools that you were at?
Yes, of course. International schools, British schools, and then also IB schools, International Baccalaureate schools. So I was
Okay.
at schools I already used to live once in Switzerland. And there I taught at an international school, which started
Which is
the
quite
IB
common, I think. Switzerland is one of those countries that people do send their children to. It's got a very good reputation, hasn't it?
Yes,
So,
yes.
okay.
And also a country where there used to be many expat families. We were also one of those expat families, right? So to start with. And of course, a new, horizon opened up towards me because I realized how teaching could also be more on inquiry-based learning, and bringing the student interest more into play. And yes, and then we moved again to Italy, to Milan, and there I started to work at university level.
Did you have a family by then? What sort of age are we talking about at that stage?
I always had a family. Actually, not well, anytime I moved for family reasons. So what did that mean? I actually moved due to the job of my husband. And that meant my husband had his job, but I had to start all over again, right? So that was also, so what I was talking about before about the students also applied to me. So I had to leave everything back, start from scratch again, not knowing anybody, and, as if you were a tabula rasa.
That is really tough. It's hard to make a network. You've got no networks. I think that's what's so hard when you move.
Exactly. And anytime, I was, of course, a mother as well. Of course, our son also had this. I just have one son who's a grown up now. And he also had to move with us. And in the sense, starting from all over again, which meant that I felt his pain as much as I felt my pain as well. Of course, the focus first was with my son. And but just to get back, so I started at university. I introduced also at university new things, right? And even there, I did a lot of personal development and coaching with my students, and the students were a little bit taken aback by the fact that I took so much time for them, right?
They wouldn't have understood it at all. Like, what teacher has time to spend one-on-one with children? Not a lot these days.
Exactly. And I remember one of those moments of one student who really struggled, with finishing her studies, and she was actually never finishing it because it was not her field of interest. It just wasn't her field of interest.
No, I've got 3 boys, and one of them is exactly like that. He really doesn't like school at all. And it's hard because you want them to love it and to love learning.
Exactly. And I mean, I'm talking here of a student who was 25 or 26 at the time, not yet finished. And still, and I said, are you really sure? I took time, and I said to her, even if you seem to be towards the end, but are you really sure that this is what you want to do? And it's never too late, I said, to do something else.
She would never have had a teacher say that to her. I am sure. No. She was just thinking, I've got to finish.
Exactly.
So what a breath of fresh air you would have been.
Yes, exactly. And, that happened. And then she came to the conclusion, no, it's not my thing. And she did finish with that, started something else, and was so fast in finishing the other aspect, the other subject, that after years and years, she still is in touch with me by telling me, you saved my life, so to say.
Yeah. You sound like you did. Okay, so by that stage, so you moved to Milan. What happened after that? Where did you go next?
Then in Milan, I was many years in Milan, and there I became a principal also of an international school, right? So I that was a school which seemed to be, in a position of either shutting down, or that was when I was appointed. They told me, actually, this is our last go. This is our
wow.
last go.
No pressure then.
Yeah. Well, I didn't take it initially. Maybe the first 3 weeks were horrible, I must say, because I thought, how can I do that? But then this entrepreneurial aspect in me, this was so inbuilt and intrinsically there that I wanted it to work. And honestly speaking, after 4 years, we grew so. After 1 year, it grew already so much that after 2 years, it was clear we needed to have a new infrastructure because we are so big. And
wow, what a fantastic result! Those movies on TV where they show, like To Sir with Love, but which probably hardly anyone has heard of because I'm slightly older than probably a lot of the women that are listening. But that idea of having a teacher, which is so true, that can transform your whole opinion of education. And it sounds like you are that teacher.
Well, I also happen to be often in a context where just people then react accordingly. And then, of course, you can create things. But I remember also in that school, a number of teachers, they were in fear. They were just kind of paralyzed because they were really anxious about losing their jobs. And I come in and say, no, we are growing. Initially, you can imagine they didn't actually
They didn't believe you at all.
Me at
they went,
all.
Here's another new principle and
yes.
nothing's going to change.
Yes.
And you
yes.
did it.
Yes. And when they realized, that I was really true to what I was saying, I didn't just say it, and that with this energy, we could create something all together. Because
I love it.
It's just being a team, right, Jules?
Yeah,
it's about having
absolutely.
this team. And when the team realizes that you can, first of all, there's no such thing that you can do something just by yourself. You can plant a seed, but then you have to create a surrounding, a culture where each person feels valued and appreciated. And when that culture starts to grow, then you can transform everything and you can go beyond limitations. And this is
fantastic.
Yeah.
Right. So this is starting to give you little inklings of what you could do maybe later on. But what happened after that? Did your husband move again and you had to move country?
Yes.
Okay. What does he do, by the way?
He's a banker.
Okay.
He's a banker, and of course, when he's called to do something else,
That's it. You got to do it.
That's it, and that was very clear from the very beginning. And I'm not a victim. I did decide.
No. And on top of that, you have an exciting life with lots of travel,
exactly.
which in some ways has fed, by the sounds of it, into what it is that you're doing anyway, because the travel is so experiential and learning and education and all that kind of thing as well.
Well, as you say, Jules, I think I wouldn't be here where I'm now without having traveled, right? And without having been exposed to so many different realities, because all these different realities and all these wonderful experiences helped, of course, to create
to build up.
It's this kind of red thread, right? Which goes through one's life. And if I look back now onto my life, I really have this perception, it was really, as you just said, it was building up one step at a time. And
layer upon layer, as they used to say. There used to be an ad for apple pie here and they'd go layer upon layer upon layer.
Exactly.
So, but absolutely true. That's how you think. It's all growth.
Exactly.
So Milan, where was the next stop?
Well, my husband was moved to Geneva, and I didn't join him there yet because I had a project to finish. Because at the time, of course, in the school, we were about to move from one setting to the next one with lots of investments, and so they asked me to stay longer just to make that happen.
They must have been terrified at the thought of losing you. How's that school gone since you've been gone? Do you know? Have you stayed in touch?
Yes, of course, I know how it's going. Yeah. No, it's gone really well because I extended my stay for 2 years. I extended my stay.
2 years without your husband.
Yes.
2 years
Well,
having to just travel.
Yeah. We had to commute. Of course, it wasn't easy, right?
No.
But they tried to convince me first for 1 year and then for another year. So I stayed for 2 more years just to make this a solid thing, right? And then,
wonderful.
Yeah. And then, you know, they were ready. And when you create a setting which is ready, you know, then you can move on. So
you've watched the baby grow up and start walking, and it's time to move on to the next one.
It's like being a mom, right? It's like being a mom.
It is.
Yeah.
And you're a mum of hundreds of children, I'm sure, in a lot of ways. So where did you go next? I'm interested to hear about the School for Gifted Children that I saw in LinkedIn that was in your profile as well, because I'm fascinated by that as well. But what happened after Milan anyway? Where did you go next?
Well, I went not that far away to Switzerland, Italian part of Switzerland, Lugano, which is actually very close by. It's about 1.5 hours, but still, you know. And initially I started to teach at a boarding school because, you know, I thought...
Traditional boarding school?
No, private American boarding school. And I actually wanted to take a year off, but then this was offered to me. And then I thought, that's a great, a great experience.
Couldn't resist.
No, I couldn't, because I wanted to see how a boarding school works. You know, I wanted to see how an American school works. I wanted to see how things come together.
Yes.
And while I was there already, my first year, I was offered again a principalship of the international school there, and so I started that. And my husband was, after 1 year only, my husband was moved again to Zurich this time, you know, and again, but you know, at that moment, it wasn't. I wasn't on a project that was so important. I already started to build up, yes, but it was clear to me that I would follow my husband. And when I followed my husband, I undertook this. You know, I was always working and putting things together, and it was clear I would create now my own. Right, something.
Okay. So we're now, yeah. So what did you do?
Just to get back to giftedness, you know, the aspect of giftedness. I'm trained as a master in gifted education. I have a master degree in gifted education, and I came to the conclusion throughout my life experience, giftedness applies to each single individual.
Oh, I'd give you a hug through the screen if I could. I love that. That's so true. But just on another aspect of giftedness, one of the things often is that because they're so smart, they find it really hard to socialize and also to relate to people. So how do you address that?
Yes, well, give them the space, you know. We don't have to expect everyone to socialize with everyone. We can also, you know, there are people, we also use strategies such as human design. I don't know whether that is something of your knowledge.
No, tell me, what is it?
Well, human design is actually a strategy that helps you understand the personality according to the data when the person is born, you know, exactly the time, and it gives you an insight which kind of essence is there. Is it a manifestor?
I've never heard of it.
It's interesting. Right. It's so
interesting. And so is it a bit like, I know with adults they talk about the disc, disc personalities. I don't know whether you have that over there. It might be because of the acronym and I don't know what it stands for. But is that kind of assessing your personality, your strengths and weakness, and how you interact in order to then learn the best way to teach you? Is that right?
Somehow, I don't know the disc, what you're mentioning now.
I'm sure in Italian it probably doesn't have the same initials.
but anyway, it's not about the weaknesses, because, you know, we don't look at weaknesses as such, because we look at what is there, you know, because if I understand that, as you said before, I'm dealing here with a student who who actually does really well in a one-on-one setting, but does not well in a group setting where there are more than 5-6 people, because just of being intimidated, because of being an introvert, because of being whatsoever, then I would not insist this person to do that.
And also, I think that's good, because the other thing is when they're very young, and if you're super, super smart, it makes it difficult in some ways for them to go through. So they probably have never had anyone be so gentle and understanding with them until they met you, I'm guessing.
Well, and that's, I don't know. There's certainly so many other people who really see that as well. But for sure, this is what's happening here, right? At School Beyond Limitations. And we do have, for instance, a student who refused to talk in the traditional setting.
Non-verbal.
Didn't talk at all, complete refusal, right? Okay. And after only 1 week at School Beyond Limitations, just started to smile again, and can't stop chatting. Yeah, can't stop chatting in a one-on-one. Doesn't stop creating in a one-on-one, but it is still kind of, very, not very, occasionally opening up also in the bigger group. But if he's not when he's not ready, he can have this moment of not being ready. We would not insist then, our teachers would not insist them anymore, because they know, it doesn't actually empower him. But when he is ready, then, everyone just keeps being speechless, because
amazing. Yeah. So was he nonverbal at home? Like, did his teachers go, wow, we didn't even know that he would speak one-on-one, or was it just outside of the home that he didn't speak?
Well, it ended up not being, he was nonverbal in school, and he was not anymore prepared, for instance, to do simple things, like going in the restaurant, ordering for himself, the food, ordering the drink, going to get something, ask people, wasn't possible. And only 1 week, because we always start our school years with a residential week, so that the students already get to know one another, and the teachers as well. And after just a few days there, in a different country where, we were in Spain at the time, and in Spain people do not necessarily speak English, right? And
you're right. It's very difficult.
Yeah.
I've been to Spain, and it's nothing like English. So with German and Italian, I can kind of guess, but in Spanish, I find it impossible. So.
But anyway, he asked, how can I say that in Spanish, to order that specific drink? And he went there. He went there.
That's fantastic.
And his mother picked him up at the airport and realized that she was in tears. In tears. And she said, this was my best ever, decision, that I took him out from the traditional school and I put him here, because I just see what's happening here, right? So, yeah.
Oh, Martina, what a fantastic, it's so validating for you as well to see these children blossom and think, I helped them do that.
Yes. And, helping them and seeing that happen, that makes us go on. And also the teachers, and interestingly enough, our teachers who are joining School Beyond Limitations now, and who have joined already, these are very experienced teachers who actually were used, not all of them, but a number of them, who were school principals and heads of schools, and become teacher mentors, because they say, this is one of our teacher mentors who used to be a school head for 17 years.
Oh, yeah.
17 years. He said to me the other day, you know what, Martina, I have never been as happy as I'm now, because this is what we are doing here, is what I was always looking for, and I was never, it was never possible. And here it is, because you just see the
amazing.
Yeah.
So what age groups is the School Beyond Limitation? Is this a secondary school?
We start, it's, First of all, we have multi-age level classes. So
okay. Oh, I love it.
Because in real life, right? How is it
Yeah.
in real life?
That's right. You don't go, oh, we're all the same age, so we'll hang around
exactly.
together.
How is it in a company, right? How is it in an enterprise, you know? So this is why we did it as well. So also here, Beyond Limitations. So I forgot now.
So no, that's okay. So they start. What age are you? What ages are you so doing?
We start at around when the student is ready, because of course, in the sense, you know, it's online. The majority of lessons are taking place online, so they have to be able to be somehow independent, and to basic skills have to be there, right?
Right.
And so it's our youngest one at the moment is 9.
Okay.
And we go up to A levels, so 18.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So it's that age range.
Amazing. Now tell me, you have this idea for this school. You want to get it up and running. Did you have to raise finance? Did you have to go and find funding? And if so, what was that like? Oh, no, you didn't.
Well,
how did you do it?
You know, we did it because we run, of course, on the basis of school fees, right?
Oh, of course. So yes, teaching. I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah. So, and then of course we invested our own money initially, right? My co-founder and myself, it's time, money, and so forth. And then of course we run on the basis of school fees, right? And although, you know, of course it costs some money, you know, for parents, because we offer such a personalized program. It's so personalized, you know. Our classes are not bigger than 8, and then our students are coached weekly on a 1-to-1 basis. You know, they get really a 1-on-1. Then we have EAL, additional support also. So a second teacher in a classroom context, you know, and beyond. And,
wow. So you've got 8 children with 2 teachers.
Yeah, exactly.
That is amazing. No wonder the children are flourishing, because somebody cares about them and gets to know them really well as well.
Exactly. And then on top of that, you know, we go on this experiential weeks, and that's also included in our school fees. So,
right.
And on top, we also offer school scholarships. So each class also runs on the basis of one scholar, because we want also to open our space. We want to do good, right? We want to do good.
Yes.
We want to help. But also those people and those students who wouldn't otherwise be able to afford this.
That's fantastic. So where do you? Oh, I guess as the word gets out, and I'll be helping you as well. I guess that you the word gets out and people start applying for the scholarships. Is that how it works, or do you?
Yes.
Is there someone that feeds that? You know, is there an orphanage or something that's feeding them to you?
No. We actually publish, let's say we communicate that on our channels, right?
Yeah.
And we say, each class, whenever we open a new class, we open a new scholarship, right? And then, of course, we go through a very rigorous process, because, of course, the scholarship only applies to people who really bring a lot of motivation. So that they enrich our setting. Then
community,
then of course, one of our scholars actually has already, and he's only 14. He has already founded his own foundation by helping people, by helping homeless people in his city. And he has already grouped a number of people together who help him practically, to nourish this foundation. Yeah.
How amazingly inspiring. All right. So I've kind of only got one more question, and it's totally up to you as to how much you want to share. But I like to say to the women that are watching that very, very rarely does a career kind of go in this nice straight path, and particularly when you're setting things up yourself. So can you tell me, were there any pivotal moments specifically in the School Beyond Limitations where it became a real challenge and you thought, oh my goodness, what am I going to do? And then something else has happened out of it. For instance, COVID, which you'd never planned for. But have there been challenges along the way that you could share, any learnings that you've had?
Of course. I mean, there are challenges more or less. I don't want to say every day, right? But I mean, there are challenges really all the way, all the time. Challenges, you know, when you speak with families and you think now, you know, this family is about to enroll, and you go through the entire process, which is a long process, right? And then you see how much the student, because first of all, it's the student who has to have a desire to join us, right? And if that happens, you know, then of course you see this fire and this sparkle in their eyes, right? And then you know, you realize at the end of the day that the parents say, no, we can't afford it, but they don't say to you at the beginning. They say to you when the process is over. So that's painful, you know, that's very painful. Not only because you know, you already planned accordingly, and but it's painful for the student. Then certainly, you know, setting up a business like that, you have to be persistent. You know, you bring something new into life, especially in education, and especially in Europe. Now the sun is coming.
I know.
Is it still okay?
So I can't even remember what we were
challenges.
talking about now.
We were talking about challenges. And of course, you know, challenges is also setting up something new. And especially what I wanted to say before, education is a very, it's interesting. There are many people who are ready to invest in themselves when they are adults, coaching and stuff like that, you know, and they are ready to invest a lot of money in such things, right? And that's amazing. I'm completely in favor of that. Don't get me wrong, right? It's great. But when it comes to their children, sometimes education, they are not as, you know, they are not as courageous.
They don't see the value, no, as well. And they kind of, I was just talking with somebody this week that was saying, instead of, she's an executive coach, but she's changed because she's gone, why am I teaching the people that are leaders anyway? I want to teach the people in middle management how to get up to being leaders. And it is the same thing. Why are we teaching adults excellence when we should be teaching the children so that they can kind of go through and share it with people as they grow?
Exactly. And Jules, exactly that was also one of the reasons for us to create School Beyond Limitations, because this is also my core belief, right? My core belief is if we already set, you know, the environment for young people so that they can start to believe in what their uniqueness is and to treasure that, not only appreciate that, but bring that to fruition, then they don't have to go through the entire conditioning, you know.
That's right.
Yeah. And that was it. So challenges as such are there all the time, right? And of course, you know, now we are getting more and more known, you know, and people see also the results. For instance, you know, there is in Europe, I don't know Australia well enough, but, you know, if we were to compare the States with Europe, then there is a huge difference. In the States, you know, there is this kind of movement. You don't need to have always just grades in order to prove that you are a valid person, right? But in Europe, it's all based on standardized testing, on mainly.
It pretty much is here as well, I'm very sad to say. And I'm waiting for that European model that I see in the Northern European places where, and I think you were talking about that holistic learning. So let's choose a subject and we'll do the maths and the history and the geography around that topic or around that country, which just makes so much more sense.
Exactly. And you are mentioning now the, you know, the Finnish system, and it's interesting because we have integrated, you know, in our approach of learning, the transdisciplinary and interdisciplinary approach. So as you rightly say, you bring in the interest of the student and then you look at it from the different angles, and we don't categorize in subjects areas, right? In subjects anymore.
I want to go to your school.
And it's so wonderful to see, you know, because Finland only this year has actually said we abolish subjects completely. You know, we don't talk in these terms anymore. In Finland, they have started to do that.
That's so good.
Yeah, and it's good. Exactly. And that doesn't mean, that's interesting. That doesn't mean that then the students don't understand that, when they talk, let's pretend they are talking about, I don't know, animals, right? That when they talk about animals, that they can't go into history, they can't go into nutrition.
That's right. Biology and
exactly.
food, all those things, it just makes so much more sense to me that that's the way that they should be teaching children. But so was there, and this will be the last question and then I'm going to let you go, but was there a time at any stage when since you decided to set up the School Beyond Limitations where you thought, this is not going to work? What am I going to do? I've made the wrong decision. Did you ever have that moment? Did anything happen along the way where you thought it's not going to work, or you just knew all the way through?
Well, I think there were moments where, where of course you were shattered at times, right? But there was never a doubt that this was not the right thing, because it felt, all the way through, it felt, although there were many moments, and they are always coming, along the way, where there was more this victimized thinking, wow, this will not work, but that's the victimized thinking. Inside me, it was clear, this is the way forward. This is, and even if it's just 5 people, we will reach out. But if these 5 people transform their lives, then this is already enough for us. So, and that was the driving force. And then when you realize, and just to get back about the standardized thinking and so forth, when you realize that your students, because we prepare our students, of course, also for, according to where they want to go, and what they want to do in their lives.
What their career would be. Yeah.
Yes. And one of our students, she's a writer, right? And she wants to become a writer, and she wants to study at Oxford University. So it was clear that she would undergo the normal final IGCSEs and exams and so forth. Yeah. And so we prepared her together with her, because it's also very self-directed, of course, as well, but with a lot of help from the school. And she scored out of, one out in the top 10%,
No,
so,
really?
Yes.
That's amazing. That is amazing. And you know why? It's because you're teaching, sorry, I'm not trying to tell you what to do, but I honestly believe that if you empower children and everything that you're doing, if she decides she wants to go to Oxford and she's not being forced by her parents or because she's got good marks, because there's a thing here in Australia, particularly we have lots of Asians here, and in the Chinese and the Asian communities, their children are basically told you've got to be a lawyer or a doctor, or otherwise you're not a real person, because that's what their parents are driving them to do. And you just kind of think, wow, if the child decides they want to do it, of course they're going to make it happen.
Absolutely right, June. It's absolutely right. Anytime, and that's the driving force, and that makes them tick, right? As you rightly say. And then they just do it. They see its work. Of course, it's not that they don't do anything.
No, of course not. But they bounce out of bed wanting to do it because it's something they love or they want to achieve. Yeah. I love it.
And you know what, Jules? What happens on top of that is that the student, and such a student, brings so much inspiration to the group. Because, she may be the one or he may be the one undertaking examination and the others not, right? But they see the spark in their eyes, they watch. And one of our students last year said, I would like to become like this, our peer, because she's amazing, what she's, and so forth. And this is what's happening. And also on top of that, our students experience themselves, not only as students, they experience themselves as being experts, because they go into depth in their fields, and then we have flipped classroom, where they become the teachers of the others, right?
Oh, I love it.
It's
rather than
amazing.
The children in Australia, and I'm sure everywhere where they're sort of standardized, and they're told you have to get up in front of the class and you're going to talk about this topic, and they're like, I'm not interested in that topic and I hate speaking out loud. And the teacher goes, bad luck, that's what you're going to do.
Yeah.
So it's just so much more empowering to say, now you're talking about a topic I want to talk about. Please put me up the front of the class. I want to tell everyone what I've learned.
Exactly. And you know what happens, because our lessons, they last 3 hours, right? We don't have breaks, and but it's 3 hours of ongoing engagement, right?
Yeah.
And of course it has a specific structure as well, kind of, so that they understand everything is important because you are a whole being. It's not only intellect, it's, everything. So we do lots of different things here. And when a 10 years old asks you, a 10 years old asks you, can I create 3 hours lesson? I would like to lead that.
Wow. Martina, you are doing the most amazing thing. I am so, so glad you agreed to this interview. I can't tell you how happy I am to hear about your school, and I pray and hope that it spreads around the world and that all the children get access to that kind of education, because I think you're probably making real industry disruptors, innovators, entrepreneurs, and people that, they'll probably all go on and win Nobel Prizes now, your students.
Well, Shul, thank you so much for having given me this space. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and as you see, I could talk endlessly, because beyond limitations.
Me too. Now, tell if anybody wants to find out more about the School Beyond Limitations, what's the best way for them to do that?
Well, we have a website which is called schoolbeyondlimitations.com. So you find a lot of material there.
Yeah,
otherwise,
great.
Of course, we are on all the social media channels, from Facebook to Twitter to Instagram to YouTube. We also have a YouTube channel, and on LinkedIn, of course, as well.
So you're so cool.
Oh, gosh.
Oh, I love it. Thank you so much. Now, for anybody that's been watching this, I am sure you are inspired. I would love it if you would like or comment whatever you think about what I've been talking about with Martina. There are a couple of other lessons that I think will be there. Not lessons. I think I'm in school now. Episodes, if you'd like to see some more amazing women. She's the Boss has also got a podcast called She's the Boss Chats. Please go and have a look at it. It's on every single one of the sort of podcast channels. I run lunches every Friday for female founders online, and you are more than welcome. And you can find all of it at she'stheboss.com.au. So thank you for joining me, and I hope you'll come back for the next episode.